White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt finally reemerged from hiding to give us another disastrous White House press briefing in which she was pressed about a number of topics, from Trump's health to Trump's corrupt pardons to Trump defying court orders vis-a-vis SNAP and food stamp benefits, the government shutdown, and so much more, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play. Let's jump right on in.
And on the shutdown, Democrats have been pretty quiet about the president's push for the nuclear option, terminating the filibuster. Is there any concern around here that Democrats might actually want Republicans to get rid of the filibuster so that one day, when they're in power again, the door's already open for them to pack the Supreme Court, give statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico, make mail-in balloting permanent, those kinds of things?
I think the president has been very realistic and strong in his position on the filibuster. He's been very vocal about it. I just spoke to him about it. He feels really strongly about this. Republicans need to play tough and they need to play smart. That's how the president feels. And we know that Democrats, if they are ever given a chance at power again in this city, they will absolutely take away the filibuster from the United States Senate. In fact, you had 49 Democrats who already voted to do this before. The only reason it did not move forward was because you had 2 Democrats who are no longer in office because they were run out of town by the far left radical base of their party. And so President Trump is quite clear on this. He wants to see Republicans move as many good pieces of legislation for our country forward in the next 3 years of his administration as they possibly can. And the filibuster is one means to doing that.
So Trump is doubling down on his threats about the filibuster. We'll cover that in a separate video. I wish Fox News reporter Jackie Heinrich and Karoline Leavitt were right about the Democratic Party, that the Democratic Party would, expand the Supreme Court, make D.C. and Puerto Rico a state, make it much easier to vote. But we were stymied before by more conservative Democrats, and there's no guarantee that those attempts, number one, would ever make it to the floor, and number two, that you would have enough Democratic support to end the filibuster to do it. But again, wishful thinking. I hope that they're right, that that's what the next version of the Democratic Party will do, but we'll see. Here's another clip.
Can you help clear up some confusion about SNAP benefits? Because
Sure.
The president just posted that they will only be given out when the radical left Democrats open the government and not before. But just yesterday, the administration said it would comply with a court order to expend the full amount of SNAP contingency funds by end of business day yesterday. So did the administration distribute that money or defy that court order?
No, the administration is fully complying with the court order. I just spoke to the president about it. The recipients of these SNAP benefits need to understand it's going to take some time to receive this money because the Democrats have forced the administration into a very untenable position. We are digging into a contingency fund.
Right, and this court's ordered you to do it, 2 federal courts, but as we discussed in a previous video, Trump explicitly said that he would not be dispersing SNAP benefits until Democratic lawmakers bent the knee to him vis-a-vis the government shutdown. So either Donald Trump is lying, Karoline Leavitt is lying, or Donald Trump is confused and people are running the government around him. I say we're not dispensing the funds, and everyone else is like, actually, no, we're going to do that. So is he a moron, a liar, or a puppet? Either way, it doesn't look good. There's no way to square the circle, and this question will come up again. So we'll see what happens. Here's another clip.
Caroline, there's been some reporting out there about the possibility of furloughed workers not getting back pay. We know that the president signed that bill into law in his first term. Does the administration guarantee that all furloughed workers will get back pay?
This is something we are very much open to discussing with Democrats as part of the discussions about the continuing resolution to keep the government open. And it's something that Republicans are talking with Democrats about right now.
So again, the reporter points out, well, no, Trump signed into law, federal law, that if workers are furloughed, they need to receive back pay. So is Trump going to follow the law? Is he going to follow his own law? Well, we're thinking about it. So again, just objective proof that Donald Trump is a lawless president, morally inferior to any Democratic president. But again, we'll continue.
Caroline, the president posted on Truth Social that the voting underway in California is, quote, rigged. What evidence does he have of that, and what does it mean that mail-in ballots in that state are under legal and criminal review? By whom and why? And also, in this vein, does the White House still plan to issue an executive order banning mail-in voting, and what legal authority do you have to do that?
The White House is working on an executive order to strengthen our elections in this country and to ensure that there cannot be blatant fraud, as we've seen in California with their universal mail-in voting system. It's absolutely true that there's fraud in California's elections. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. They have a universal mail-in voting system, which we know is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny that, I'm happy to provide you all of the evidence for it. I'd be glad to send that to you after this briefing.
Rigged.
Fraudulent ballots that are being mailed in the names of other people, in the names of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting in American elections. There's countless examples, and we'd be happy to provide them. As for executive action the White House is taking, yes, we are looking into that. And like any executive order, of course, any executive order the president signs is within his full executive authority and within the confines of the law.
Well, not of course strike it down. It's not like Donald Trump is particularly faithful vis-a-vis, respecting the limits of his executive authority. He likes to push and violate those limits all the time. He doesn't have the executive authority to ban mail-in voting anywhere, including California, let alone nationwide, number one. Number two, no one is denying that fraud exists in every state. Now, Karoline Leavitt said fraud exists in California. Well, voter fraud can be found anywhere, including red states, Republican states, Trump-supporting states. The question is it rampant fraud? Is it outcome determinative fraud? And the vast majority, like 99.99998% of elections have never experienced outcome determinative voter fraud. Trump didn't say that he wants to reduce fraud. And if he were interested in reducing fraud, why wouldn't he do it in red states as well? Sounds like he only wants to try to pick these fights with Democrats because they don't support him. And number two, he didn't say fraud, he said rigged. And rigged would imply outcome determinative fraud. So again, Karoline Leavitt really suffers here and struggles. As Ben Folks of Notes of Montana, we use mail-in voting available to all in Montana. The state went for Trump every time. We have a Republican governor and legislature. So were those elections also fraudulent, or is it only cheating when he doesn't win? And of course, that's the answer. Donald Trump doesn't believe that he can lose a free and fair election. He believes he's invincible and perfect and powerful and infallible. And so do MAGA cultists like Karoline Leavitt. They're, of course, objectively wrong and stupid and should be made fun of for the rest of their lives about this. But that's a really good question. Again, it just demonstrates that Trump actually has no interest in ensuring free and fair elections. Otherwise, he'd be even-handed in that approach and would have evidence to support it, which, of course, he's neither of these things. But let's continue.
The air traffic controller crisis ongoing. Secretary Duffy said he will now start to cancel and ground flights next week to maintain safety. Should people fly next week given this new information? And is the administration encouraging people to stop flying altogether and look at alternative transportation modes?
The administration is encouraging Democrats to reopen the federal government so this chaos and disruption to our air traffic control system in the United States of America stops.
So when Trump came into office, we saw an extraordinary level of chaos regarding flights. And that's, I suppose, what happens when you appoint a Fox News host like Sean Duffy as transportation secretary instead of someone competent. And as far as the government shutdown is concerned, again, Donald Trump has an obligation to negotiate with Democrats if he needs their votes to reopen the government. And it's just that simple. President Biden was able to avoid a government shutdown for precisely that reason. He was able to negotiate. Trump is refusing to do so and throwing a tantrum. It's objectively his fault. Here's another clip.
Thanks, Caroline. As of last I checked, the president still had not commented on the death of former Vice President Dick Cheney. Is the White House involved in the funeral arrangements in any way? Does the president plan to speak at the funeral? Has he spoken to anyone in the Cheney family today? And does the White House have an opinion on whether or not the former vice president should lie in honor or stay in the Capitol?
I don't believe the White House is involved in that planning, or at least hasn't gotten to it yet. I know the president is aware of the former vice president's passing, and as you saw, flags have been lowered to half staff in accordance with statutory law.
Doesn't look like he reached out to the Cheney family to express condolences. Of course, the Cheneys were very critical of Donald Trump. Dick Cheney, the Darth Vader of pre-Trump politics. I mean, look, I don't think Dick Cheney was a good person. I really don't. And so I'm not going to sit here and lionize and beatify him. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Bush-Cheney administration was a good one. It was not. Prior to Trump, it was the worst Republican presidency in modern American history. And when you consider the shit that Reagan did, that's saying something. The Bush-Cheney administration was substantially worse, and Trump has just blown all that out of the water. But yeah, I'm not surprised that I'm actually kind of surprised that the flags have been lowered because again, Dick Cheney was a vocal critic, and so was his daughter Liz Cheney of Trump. But it doesn't seem like it goes beyond that. Here's another clip.
President Trump said to CBS in the 60 Minutes interview that he did not know the Binance founder, which he pardoned. What exactly did he mean for that? I know it caused.
He means he does not know him personally. He means he does not have a personal relationship with this individual. And when it comes to pardons, the White House takes them with the utmost seriousness, and the president understands the responsibility that he has as president to issue clemency and issue pardons to individuals who are seeking that. That's why we have a very thorough review process here that moves with the Department of Justice and the White House counsel's office. There's a whole team of qualified lawyers.
Yeah, except he pardoned 1,500 January 6th insurrectionists, including the ones who beat the shit out of cops, and Donald Trump claims to support the cops, and he didn't have to pardon them or give them clemency. He could have pardoned the nonviolent offenders. Instead, he chose to pardon them all. The Binance founder has a direct financial relationship with the Trump family, helping enrich Trump. That's an obvious corrupt conflict of interest, to say nothing of the fact that the Binance founder in question, in addition to pleading guilty to fraud along with Binance itself, they facilitated financial transactions for Hamas and Al-Qaeda. And Trump pardoned that guy. So objectively, infinitely worse than any pardon we ever saw from President Biden, President Obama, or any Democrat for that matter. Here's another clip.
Abuse maker, and he was very clear when he came into office that he was most interested in looking at pardoning individuals who were abused and used by the Biden Department of Justice and were over prosecuted by a weaponized DOJ.
Again, the CZ Binance founder, he pled guilty. He pled guilty to fraud. And so, and it's just, again, there's no excuse for this whatsoever. It was incredibly corrupt and incredibly selfish of Donald Trump, self-serving, but that's classic textbook Trump. Here's another clip.
Karen, yes.
Back on the issue of back pay for furloughed workers, you said that the White House is open to discussing that with Democrats, but what would that discussion even be? There was a law, the president signed it in 2019. What could a discussion look like? Why is that even open for discussion?
Look, Karen, as I said, Republicans are talking about that with Democrats right now, and I don't want to get in the middle of those sensitive conversations. But as we've complied with the SNAP order, the White House, the administration is always going to comply with the laws. We're always going to comply with the ruling of judges across the country.
Except when they don't. And again, it's a really good question. The reporter's right. There's really nothing to discuss. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump signed this law into law in the first place, which means you would think he would have a particular obligation to follow it more than anybody, right? But he is just flouting it. You're admitting he's flouting it, so it doesn't really bode well. One last question, and the topic turns to Trump's health.
Why did President Trump get an MRI during his recent visit to Wall Street?
Look, as President Trump said, he would inquire with the physicians. I'll check back on that. But as the physical itself stated, Kristen, and as you all know, because you are all witness to it, every single day the president is in optimal physical health. This was a follow-up appointment, and we provided a detailed readout of that physical.
So again, the fact of the matter is they obfuscated the fact that he had an MRI. Donald Trump let it slip. They said it was an annual visit, but he had already had his annual visit, so they were misleading about that. He's not in optimal physical health. He's overweight. He has a terrible diet. He has bruises on his hands. He has swollen ankles. He's in a state of physical and mental decline, which is why the polling on this is particularly brutal. So again, you're just full of shit, and we have no reason to believe you. So there you have it, folks. Karoline Leavitt reemerging from hiding for another disastrous White House press briefing. And in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.